All right, kids, they say to never meet your heroes. You'll find out that they're human just like you. Well, as much as I can look up to someone who I'm older than and taller than, I look up to Hasan Minhaj, which is who we're going to talk about today. Now, Hasan Minhaj is a comedian and an actor. He was the last correspondent hired by Jon Stewart on The Daily Show and performed there from 2014 to 2017. To anyone who will listen, you've heard me say that my dream job is to be a contributor or a correspondent on The Daily Show. Hasan shows me that it can be done, although not how it's done. He's a funny guy who is very smart. I would like to think of myself as a smart guy who can be funny. And as much as I feel like I can match wits with anybody when it comes to social and political commentary, it was Hasan's stand-up, to me, that set him apart from everybody. In particular, his storytelling.
My dad's from that generation, like a lot of immigrants, where he feels like if you come to this country, you pay this thing like the American dream tax, right? Like you're gonna endure some racism, and if it doesn't cost you your life, well, hey, you lucked out, pay it. There you go, Uncle Sam. But for me, like a lot of us, I was born here. So I actually have the audacity of equality.
In Homecoming King, his first stand-up special, which was released on Netflix in 2017, Hasan describes, in painful details, the racism he experienced growing up as an immigrant in America and the subsequent rejection from a girl, a white girl, that he considered a friend, who agreed to go to the prom with him but backed out and got a different date because her parents didn't want her to be seen or take pictures with a brown boy. Hasan said that he didn't find out about the switch until the night of the dance as he stood on the porch watching some white boy put a corsage on his crush. Well, according to this article from the New Yorker, that never happened. The woman disputed certain facts. She told me that she turned down Minhaj, who was then a close friend, in person, days before the dance. Minhaj acknowledged that this was correct, but he said that the two of them had long carried different understandings of her rejection. The emotional truth, whatever that means, of the story he told on stage was resonant and justified the fabrication of details, wrote Claire Malone. We'll get back to this prom rejection thing later. Actually, as Malone makes clear, Minhaj acknowledged for the first time that many of his anecdotes he related in his Netflix specials were untrue. She also asked an important question. The harrowing stories about experiences he faced as an Asian American and Muslim American, does it matter if many of these things never actually happened to him? Yes. Before I continue, we, the audience, already know and understand that art isn't rooted in 100% truth. That applies to music and movies and even stand-up comedy. When it says based on a true story, the word based carries a lot of weight. I mean, there's no way that Kevin Hart's most famous joke about his Uncle Richie Jr. actually happened the way it did. Did he poke out his chest and ask for a peel his muffin cap back blue? I hope so.
Say it with your chest, little ass nigga.
One of my favorite jokes from Killing Them Softly, Dave Chappelle's first hour-long HBO special, was about the baby on the corner.
The baby said, I'm selling weed, nigga. I said, oh.
Chappelle would later explain to the late James Lipton on Inside the Actor Studio what inspired that joke of his.
I saw some kids running around playing, and I was like, who has their kids just running out on the streets like this? Okay, true story. Now, did the baby talk to me? No. Was he selling weed? No, but I was making a point.
Actually, going back to Homecoming King, Hasan talks about how when Jon Stewart told him that he earned his spot on The Daily Show after 10 plus years of doing stand-up and not getting any job that his dad respected, all he could say was,
John, my dad knows you.
There's a clip floating around the internet of how that interaction actually went down in what looks like the green room after the audition. With that said, Homecoming King was built around this one prom story. Hasan Minhaj received a Peabody Award for his performance in that special. A true story of love in the American dream is what flashes across the screen during its Netflix trailer. Every story in my style is built around a seed of truth, Hasan said to The New Yorker. My comedy Arnold Palmer is 70% emotional truth, this happened, and then 30% hyperbole, exaggeration, fiction. We get it. Again, I'm not a comedian, my best friend is, but what Minhaj presents isn't just stories. We're under the impression that it's personal experiences that not only affect his safety and security, but the lives of his family. In The King's Jester, Hasan's second Netflix special, he tells a story about how he once opened a letter which contained white powder, the contents of which fell on his infant or toddler-aged daughter. Fearing for her life, Hasan and his wife took her to the hospital in what was an anthrax scare. The baby was fine, but in the argument that ensued between Hasan and his wife about his clout chasing and jokes putting the family in danger, she told him that she would leave him. Then she revealed that she was pregnant with their second baby. I was invested, seeing how Hasan has explained how, due to a condition, he was unable to make babies. This supposedly took place after Minhaj spoke truth to power about Jared Kushner, the Saudi crown prince Mohammed bin Salman, the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, and a meeting Hasan was supposed to have at the Saudi embassy in Washington, D.C. All things that could have put him and his family in harm's way. But no, stakes weren't that high. Minhaj also acknowledged that the threatening tweets displayed on the large screen during The King's Jester were not authentic, but rather heightened for comedic effect. Their brother Eric's story, while the person this joke is about is very real, as the news clip Hasan showed during his special in 2022 proves, none of it took place when Hasan was a junior in high school, let alone anywhere near him when he was living in the Sacramento area. This was supposedly what led to him wanting to tell jokes for a living. Minhaj told The New Yorker the story was based on a hard foul he received during a game of pickup basketball in his youth. Minhaj and other teenage Muslims played pickup games with middle-aged men whom the boys suspected were officers. One made a show of pushing Minhaj to the ground. There's no reason why he couldn't have told this story and made it funny. Part of Hasan Minhaj's appeal and the appeal of his stories is that these things actually happened, and as a result of them, we get, for instance, his show, The Patriot Act. I loved that show, even though it wasn't made for me. Quote, though flawed in several important ways, Patriot Act provided biting comedy and cultural analysis with an eye to the South Asian diaspora, a population that has historically suppressed such discourse. These episodes were for the South Asian diaspora in a nuanced, perspective way, from their tiniest textual details to wide-angle themes and messaging. I want a black version, something like it. However, after the show was canceled, many women of color stepped forward to recount their traumatizing experience working for Hasan Minhaj when on Patriot Act. These women took to Twitter. One wrote an article on Medium to share what it was like working for Hasan and his show, Patriot Act. Their experiences unveiled the allegedly toxic environment these women had to work in. Minhaj just assembled people around him to make him appear different and much smarter and more thoughtful, a female researcher said. But those people, the smart people and hardworking people, were treated poorly for bringing the perspective that he is celebrated for. This, meanwhile, the girl, now a woman, from the prom story that I mentioned earlier, was actually getting what Hasan was pretending to get. The woman said that she and her family had faced online threats and doxing for years because Minhaj had insufficiently disguised her identity, including the fact that she was engaged to an Indian American man. A source with knowledge of the production said that during the show's off-Broadway run, Minhaj had used a real picture of the woman and her partner with their faces blurred, projected behind him as he told the story. It's worth noting that this article from The New Yorker came just 4 days after the 22nd anniversary of 9/11, when American Muslims, Arabs, and Sikhs suffered unspeakable racism, bigotry, and xenophobia. It's also a few weeks after it was reported that Jimmy Fallon treated his staff on The Tonight Show poorly. And all of this sounds familiar to what went on at the Ellen DeGeneres show. And yes, while we're questioning authenticity, we can discuss if that woman from the prom, who shall remain nameless, or the women from Patriot Act, a number of whom settled out of court, or the author of this article from The New Yorker are telling the truth. But you should know that Minhaj released a statement a few days after it was published, and he didn't directly dispute it. Yes, I was rejected from going to prom because of my race. Yes, a letter with powder was sent to my apartment that almost harmed my daughter. Yes, I had an interaction with law enforcement during the war on terror. Yes, I had varicocele repair surgery so we could get pregnant. Yes, I roasted Jared Kushner to his face. I used the tools of stand-up comedy, hyperbole, changing names and locations, and compressing timelines to tell entertaining stories. That's inherent to the art form. You wouldn't go to a haunted house and say, why are these people lying to me? The point is the ride. Stand-up is the same. Haunted houses are weird because you pay money to have people scare you, which means you know and expect and can maybe even anticipate getting frightened, but it happens anyway. Fall is almost here, 'tis the season. Hasan Minhaj has said several times that he weaves between satire and sincerity and trusts the audience to understand the difference. I would know. I was in the audience when he made that claim during his stand-up on the King's Jester tour here in Columbus. However, if he's going to say, building to what I think is a pointed argument as opposed to a pointless riff of jokes when presented with how he exaggerates, I wonder if he knows the difference between satire and sincerity. Scary. I'm aware of how smart and calculated and measured Hasan Minhaj can be. His speech during the White House Correspondents' Dinner, when he testified before Congress about student loans, when he said that he was more attractive than Dak Shepard, but will receive less opportunities due to his skin color. Speaking of, I'm certain Hasan doesn't need this explained to him. When there are claims of racism in the US by people of color, whether systemic or otherwise, and they're proven to be untrue, it impacts every minority in this country. That's why I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. And I'm not saying that Hasan hasn't experienced racism. His is the overarching lived experience for the South Asian diaspora. However, the emotional truth is first, the factual truth is secondary thing. What? Again, I'm not a comedian. I can't stress that enough. But he doesn't seem to need to lie. And that's what he's doing. I've seen so many Hasan Minhaj interviews to learn how he got to where he is. Do you know how many times I've watched this?
I remember there were people that were like, that were on my team at the time that were like, you don't have to do this. They're not asking you to do this. Just turn in the homework assignment. And I told my team this, I go, I'm not gonna win this boxing match on the cards. I have to knock this motherfucker out.
Inspiration. I apply this when I'm creating content, providing political commentary, and applying for jobs right now. I'm thinking about lying on my resume. Multiple sources close to The Daily Show have confirmed to Rolling Stone that Minhaj is currently one of 3 top candidates for the hosting job, though no deal has been locked with any talent, since, according to sources with knowledge of the negotiations, Comedy Central is waiting until after the writer's strike is over to announce its new host. And I was hoping to meet him, my hero, after I became a contributor or correspondent on The Daily Show. And I would expect him to respect the fact that I and others want to hold him accountable. That's the path he paved, and I was following it. So we're gonna be all right.
Do you think politicians should be held accountable for the mistakes they made years ago?
Yes, they're very powerful. Politicians have the ability to sign pieces of paper that can send thousands of people to war and cost millions of lives. So when it comes to a targeted criticism from their constituents, I think that's fair.
Should comedians be held accountable?
I think, to me, the 2 things that need to be adjudicated there are intent versus impact.